President, I'm not saying, what I'm saying is that 100,000 a week is too small. For is that 3 million a week for a corporate is too small. Make it daily. We have done this in 10 years in our state.
Why do you recommend that?
No. And when it was minority opinion, no, I'm coming. I didn't want to rock the boat because
you cannot come here and fight your committee, Chief Whip. It's not right. Don't throw your committee under the bus. It's not right.
President, I'm not fighting the committee. What is visible for people to do their business? Thank you very much.
Mr. President. Amendments. We make the laws at that particular time. It suits the time. But when things change, you also change.
This is not an amendment. This is not an amendment.
No, this is not an amendment. Making suggestion. You say the policy we have given the CBN power to do, yes, very perfectly, because it's going to solve problems as already. But in solving these problems now, if we follow it the way it is, strictly sensu, it means we are going to create another problem. One is unemployment. There are people who are already making a living out of this, out of the POS operation. The informal economy, part of informal economy. What are we going to do with them? We know the problems we already have here as a government that we cannot create the jobs we need. We can't create the jobs. So if we can't create the jobs, we will not take the jobs already that are existing. That's what we are saying. I'm also suggesting here that, you see, we have Isusu. Isusu, this is financial daily contributory services that are done in the rural areas. What are you going to do with those people who are doing that? You know, and these people, if they're going for a market, on a market day, they go to the people who they collect this money from them for safekeep and go and do
safekeep where?
Those people, they go to the banks.
Aha.
Those people collect this money.
We want them to go to the banks.
Suggestion, Mr. President, is that the committee we have put in place here will go back and talk with the CBN to relax this measure in terms of coming down the 150, 20,000 per day for all these people that help the informal economy of this country is not sustainable. If we do that, and I know, and in the report you have said here, you said they are going to consider, you know, flexibility. That flexibility is what we want our friend and brother Obasani to go back and ensure that that flexibility is introduced. With this thing, the information they're getting from us here, both here in the House of Reps, is enough, because we are representatives of the people, that they retouch this in so that we'll have the face, human face in this implementation. Thank you so much.
For granted. If there had been consultation, wide consultation, we wouldn't be where we are today. People would have gotten to know what is required of them and what is required of the CBN. And this speaks to what we are all going through. There has to be consultation on major issues such as this. In the report, there is a clause that says massive consultation will be held between now and the 9th of January. Mr. President, that's only 2 weeks. And there is this festive period in between. How can you have a massive consultation in those 2 weeks? The timing is wrong. Again, Mr. President, the CBN approved POS operators and registered them and took monies from them, no matter how little. And now, those people can only do so little. It took so many people off the roads. It took all our unemployed graduates off the streets. Now, they're going to be thrown back with this policy if an amendment is not done. Mr. President, there's a big elephant in the room. Why is this happening during an election period? Why is it that it is coming now when we have an election just a little over a month ahead, there is a need to be flexible in what we are doing now, so that this thing...
Do you want that flexibility because of the elections? Is it because of the elections you're making this plea, or because you believe that Nigerians are suffering? Which is it?
Nigerians are suffering. For instance, there's only one how will the people in that bank be able to manage? And beyond it all, the election, how will we be able to control the logistics of taking people around, paying for transportation during the campaigns and the elections? There is something that is happening. We're just hoping.
Senator Lujimi.
But I just want to say that my main concern is really the reason the CBN is giving for this, the demonetization policy and then the push towards the cashless policy. The CBN said it's meant to do three things. Fight inflation, fight corruption, and then introduce a cashless policy. But Mr. President, if you look at the statistics from CBN themselves, when Senator Yusuf says that it's dangerous to have 3-point-something trillion cash in the economy, I want us to understand that not all 3 trillion is actually cash outside the banking system. I think what's outside the banking system is actually about 2.3 trillion. And with what the CBN is telling us in the last week, that they have mopped up 1 trillion, it means only about 1.2 trillion is left. Mr. President, there's about 50 trillion money in circulation, out of which narrow money is about 22 trillion. This was created by the CBN themselves. In the last 7 years, federal government has borrowed almost 22 trillion from the Central Bank of Nigeria, 7,000% increase. And, if you have a situation where you say you need to reflate the economy because you want to fight the effects of COVID, want to fight the effects of the Ukrainian war, globally, everybody that took that step knew that it was going to cause inflation. We are not alone. Inflation in Nigeria is 20%. We are among the best in terms of inflation on the African continent. Ghana is 50%. The two super economies in the continent, Ethiopia, Rwanda, they're all above 30-something%. Britain today has an inflation rate of 11%, coming from an average of 2%. That's an increase of about 450%. For us to get to where Britain is today, we have to get to about a 60% inflation rate. Nobody is fighting cash in that respect. My fear is that the fixation on cash is really, having a negative impact on the rural economy. Because we're talking about cash in circulation. If you look at whether it's only about 2 or 3%. If we continue to attack 2 to 3% of the money that is available out there, how do we affect inflation? If what they are saying is true, Mr. President, by end of this month, with what they have mopped up, we should see at least a 7 percentage point in inflation rate. If it doesn't happen, then we should take out inflation as one of the reasons that we are introducing this cashless policy. Secondly, Mr. President, if for 10 years we have introduced a cashless policy, and we still have so much money outside in circulation, and then we are touting our position in the digital transfer world and whatever, it means that the two can coexist hand in hand. Yes, we have been successful, we have moved so much transactions onto you, and yet these people are still, you can't force people out of what they are used to. And when the report says that, it has been incentivized, there's no incentive. Every time the CBN comes out to address this question, it's always being punitive. We are putting penalty on this. You cannot force people to do that. Nobody forced Nigerians to embrace the mobile phone culture. But now almost everybody has a mobile phone. And in the same vein, Mr. President, if we try to force people to do something that they are not used to, it just creates a black market. It creates an economy. Right now, I have a letter from POS operators. There are 1.4 million POS operators in Nigeria and counting. They are making a living out of providing cash, out of filling in the gap that banks have failed to do in the last 15 years. Because CBN has failed to meet its financial inclusion target. Now, in one fell swoop, we're taking them out of business. 1.4 million people. Between the police, the immigration, civil defense, we have barely managed to create 30,000 jobs in the last 7 years. For us to now say these 1.4 million people that are earning a daily living do not matter, I think is very, very dangerous. It's probably more dangerous than whatever it is that we're trying to address, Mr. President. So please, I think we should exercise caution.
Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Senator Stella Adeze Odua, and I represent Anambra North. Mr. President, thank you for the privilege. Dear colleagues, I don't think that anybody objects to the fact that cashless society is what we need. First of all, we need the security that it provides us. But Mr. President, I am concerned. My concern comes as a result of us being punitive when policies such as this is being put in place. And why is it punitive? It's punitive because of the conditionalities that they attach to them. Mr. President, we must promote progress. We must encourage prosperity. The reason why we must do that is that we must ensure that our society progresses. We must also ensure that those who make efforts to earn additional living and help others who are unable to help themselves should be encouraged. That is how society progresses. Now, when you look at the conditions that CBN has put in their policy, to me it appears very punitive. How the money comes about, how the money is to be taken, and limitation on what people should do with their hard-earned money. I think even in the global best practice, it does not exist. We must find a way to remove that so we do not deter people from progressing. Having said that, Mr. President, quickly, our rural bankers cannot survive this policy somersault. Why? Because the basic infrastructure in our rural area does not exist. Most places you cannot have access to internet. However, because of the progress and the organic way that internet mobile phone has grown, it grew because people found it necessary. It was comfortable, it enhanced their way of life, and so people embraced it. The same will happen to cashless policy, e-banking, when over time, organically, people will embrace this. But forcing people to do that will just create a situation where our homes, particularly rural dwellers and elders, their pillow cases will become their banks. They will not have need.
We are trying to discourage that. That's what this policy is targeting at. Discouraging people using their pillows as piggy banks.
Mr. President, if you do not give them the enabling environment, if you do not give them the enabling infrastructure, if you do not give them enough time, if you do not sensitize them for them to understand how that benefits them, they cannot change it. We need to, as much as cashless policy is a good one, it's a good policy without adequate preparation and at the wrong time. And I think we need to address this. Finally, Mr. President, I want to say also that the same law that we made, Section 8 and Clause 4, says that CBN should extensively consult with National Assembly on changes in the policy or new policy. And I think that's a very sensible thing to do, because our policies, we must think it through. We must analyze it, we must consult with our constituents before it comes to be. Waking up in the morning and announcing to us why policies such as this should be implemented within a time frame of 3 months, 2 months, I think is unfair and shouldn't be. Draconic policies should not have a place in our lives, Mr. President. I so submit. Thank you very much.
Reports that they are presented. I think that for me, there are some aspects that have been exposed concerning the gains we have made, so far in the implementation of this policy. I am aware, and I know we are all aware, that this policy had been in force for some time, as indicated in the report. But implementation had been gradual, and we have to call a spade a spade. Nigeria is part of the global financial system, and we must also make progress. From the reports, we have been told that Nigeria is a leader in real-time payments. That fact is undisputed, and we must be making progress. I agree completely that we lack adequate critical infrastructure to support the cashless banking policy, but we must continue in the implementation of this policy because of the gains that we all know. Even though there are challenges, it is true that there are challenges, but we have to make progress because this is the only way to go. And it is the global practice that is in force. Nigeria cannot do it differently. We must start from somewhere. At this point we are now, we have to progress from this point. Fortunately, the committee has also recommended that CBN must, as a matter of fact, is here, recommendation 1 is supporting considerable adjustment in the withdrawal limit. That is, the threshold should be adjusted in line with public outcry. So I think we are good to go. We are good to go. CBN is not existing in the air. CBN will always respond to the yearnings and aspirations of the people of Nigeria. So let us adopt this position of the committee and move on. After all, we all know that when it started, some of us could not, embrace internet banking. Today, everybody is doing it as very convenient and comfortable. We are enjoying it. But initially, because of scarcity, and apprehensions, fear that you may be defrauded and all that, we're running away from it. But today, virtually everybody is enjoying it. So let us...
I'm sure even Senator Bukachua is doing internet banking. No. You are not?
To say that the rural area will be catered for and all this type of thing, there is no, we can never implement any good policy. I'm beginning to feel that some of the what we are saying that the POS, the CBN Act did not forbid the POS, that POS will not operate. But when we are now giving the pressure that the policy is killing the POS, which means that we are saying opposite of what the CBN Act is saying. They always said they will reduce the amount they will give out. If, for instance, 100 people come to POS every day and they collect 200, it's not okay. Instead of collecting 200 every day, you can collect 100 naira. It doesn't mean that it's killing the POS. And the act of the this bill did not say that the policy is sacrosanct, that they are not going to change. Let us give it a chance, according to the CBN, something that if it works well, then it will continue. Then we can now say we digitalize Nigeria. If it doesn't work well, then we can have an amendment. But when we are now trying to say, no, this policy should not work, when we have not even tried it, it's not the best thing for the country. Let us try this in and see. Even when they came with this internet banking the other time, many people kicked against it. Now we are here. There was what said that they raised the act of the CBN here. Most of us killed the act. Now the CBN is acting according to the act that we approve for it. Why can't we not give the policy a chance to survive? Let us try it for some months and see what it is. We cannot even know. It's possible those of them who were keeping their money in their briefcase, we bring it out. So for me, Mr. President, let us give this policy a chance to thrive as Homo.
Thank you, Senator.